Good morning or good afternoon to you, wherever you are in the world. My name is Joe Iverson. I'm the FSA manager at SciPlatform, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues Matt Hutchison and Carla Parish for this FSA update webinar. And I would like to extend a really warm welcome to each and every one of you. Just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded. Carla, if you could go to, I think, 2 slides forward, please. This one, exactly. So just a couple of things before we get started. Please stay muted throughout the duration of the webinar. Questions can be posted in the chat at all times, and we will have approximately half an hour towards the end of the session to discuss these. And the recording of the webinar and any new resources, which we mentioned during the webinar, will be shared with you all following today's session. Next slide, please, Carla. So I am obliged to read out the antitrust caution statement. So please just bear with me. SciPlatform meetings and events shall not result in any discussion, activity, or conduct that may infringe on its part or on the part of its members any applicable competition law. By way of example, members, whether in organized SciPlatform sessions or in private while in attendance at such sessions, shall not discuss, communicate, or exchange any commercially sensitive information, including information related to prices, marketing, and advertising strategy, costs and revenues, trading terms and conditions with third parties, including purchasing strategy, terms of supply, trade programs, or distribution strategy. If any member has any question regarding the legality of proposed discussion, the subject discussion should stop immediately and not resume until the facilitator has raised the issue with antitrust counsel and obtained permission to proceed. Thank you for all bearing with me there. Carla, next slide, please. So for today's session, delighted to welcome you all, and I will begin by providing an overview of the FSA program, including highlighting some of the main trends from 2024, some of the recent successes, and critically what we believe to be the key opportunities and focus areas for 2025. I will then hand over to Matt and Carla to reveal some exciting news regarding the Regenerating Together module, and then, as I mentioned just a moment ago, we'll have time for any questions that you might have later on in the session. Next slide, please, Carla. So in 2024, I think it's important to note the FSA's implementation has continued to expand. In fact, 2024 was a record year for the FSA with 245 new verifications. These included 77,000 farmers and verifications for 142 crops across 36 countries. So when we kind of look at that long-term aim of the FSA being the global reference framework for on-farm sustainability for crops, I think it's fair to say that we are starting to reach that goal, and that is really exciting. The top crops verified in 2024 were maize, barley, and oranges, whilst China with 49, India with 36, and Brazil with 30 were the top countries with the most verifications. Next slide, please. In 2024, the FSA expanded its scope, advanced its commitment to regenerative agriculture, strengthened its role as a solid support for businesses to assess, improve, and validate on-farm sustainability across global supply chains. And some of the main milestones for 2024, you see them on the screen here. So we announced a new partnership with UEBT, which broadened the FSA's reach beyond cultivated crops and also now includes Wild Harvest. We launched the FSA Farmer Handbook, which, if you haven't seen it, is a super handy, practical resource aimed at farmers. We launched the SciPlatform Advisor Network, which connects users of the FSA and our Region Ag tools to trained experts that are there on the ground to support them with the implementation of our industry solutions. We transitioned our verification body management over to ASI. And lastly, and I think actually one of the most important ones was that we launched our very own letter of attestation database. So not only does this support the transparency of the FSA program, it allows us as the Secretariat and also you as members to have much better oversight of where the FSA is being used and how it's being used, but it also enables us as side platform to bringing extra revenue. So that's really positive as well. Next slide, please, Carla. 2025, like any year, but 2025 is a really important year for the FSA with two brand new offerings that will really expand the scope of the program. Firstly, the launch of the FSA Regenerated Together module, which I'm really excited to announce will be available exclusively to site platform members to pilot under certain conditions as of today. And as I said, Matt and Carla will provide some more information on that announcement shortly. And the second point, the FSA's due diligence add-on, formerly the EU CSDDD module, which, while still under development, promises to create even more added value for members in 2025. Now, we had previously communicated that today's session would mark the soft launch of FSA 3.1. However, as the Regenerated Together module will be made available exclusively only to site platform members initially, which actually mirrors the approach that the Regenerating Together team are taking with the RegenX standalone tool, and coupled with the fact that the due diligence add-on requires a little bit of further development after listening to members based on the initial pilots, we are now holding off on the next iteration of the FSA until both offerings are fully available to all. Next slide, please, Carla. So now just focusing on the approach to due diligence and a couple of important updates there. But first, a recap. So I think many of you on this call will already be aware of the fact that at the kind of back end of 2023, the FSA decided to pursue a corporate sustainability due diligence directive module. And practically that made sense for the reasons you see on the screen. So number one, the FSA is already embedded within site platform member supply chains and plays a critical role in helping to scale responsible business practices. As you all know, the FSA is universally applicable. We've just seen that it was applied to more than 100 different crops just last year. And another key element being that farmer engagement and focus on continuous improvement. Fifthly, it's trusted, it has a strong reputation amongst its users. And the last point being, the FSA offers a broad approach to sustainability and is already a strong mitigation tool for due diligence related topics. However, with recent developments, including the omnibus ruling and member feedback as a result of piloting the module, we've decided to expand the scope of the module. And so what that means is, whereas previously the approach was focused on the corporate sustainability due diligence, the approach now will be focused on due diligence more generally speaking, meaning that the approach will be applicable and will be of benefit to more side platform members. Next slide, please, Carla. So the purpose of the slide here is just to outline at a high level the journey that we have come on so far in terms of the development of the due diligence approach, and also what is to come, particularly in the first half of 2025. So on the left-hand side of the diagram, in 2024, we developed 17 new farm-level questions, and we piloted these on farm with selected users. We updated the priority screening tool to allow it to identify due diligence risks at the farm management group level, and we developed guidance materials for the module. We then, at the start of this year, conducted on-farm pilots with selected FSA users. And based upon the feedback from those pilots, we decided to expand the scope of the approach, as I just mentioned. And as part of expanding the scope, and something that I think will add a lot of value to FSA users who are doing due diligence, is the fact that we are developing a purpose-built human rights and environmental impact assessment tool, which will be completed at the farm management group level. And in terms of the next steps, we hope to invite you all to pilot the approach in the summer of 2025, and we'll then launch the due diligence add-on at the closing of the year in Q4. Next slide, please, Carla. So one of the key things that we have developed within the FSA system over the last year is a refined approach to FSA legislative benchmarking. So for those that are not familiar with the topic, the FSA allows legislative benchmarking to be used to supplement benchmark schemes in countries that are deemed to have a low risk of legislative non-compliance at the farm level. Now, our previous provider stopped providing this service, and so we've worked to identify a new supplier which will offer us a more thorough and agile approach to legislative benchmarking, and the new system will be live as of April 1st, 2025. So when I talk about thorough, what I refer to is the fact that previously each country was given its risk basis on the basis of 9 indicators. There are now 43 indicators that we use to rank each country in terms of risk, meaning that it's more thorough, it's more robust. And secondly, the new system is more agile. This is because we plan to update the country risk classification every 2 years. Those of you that are close to the system might recall that the previous system remained unchanged from 2017. So by updating the country risk classification every 2 years, we are now able to respond better to kind of changing and evolving geopolitical landscapes. But we do kind of have the caveat in place to safeguard users, in the sense that there will be a 1-year grace period if a country falls out of that very low or low risk classification, meaning legislative benchmarking is no longer permitted there. Next slide, please, Carla. So practically speaking, for users, the changes are actually quite minimal, other than the ones that we see on the screen here. So I think the most important one is that Hungary will move from low risk to medium risk, meaning legislative benchmarking will no longer be allowed there as of April 1st. Italy, which is a big country for FSA users, now it goes the opposite direction. It now falls under low risk, meaning that legislative benchmarking will be allowed there. We see three new countries, Chile, Costa Rica, and Uruguay, that now fall under the low risk bucket, meaning that legislative benchmarking is allowed there. And as I mentioned just before, these changes will be effective as of April 1st, and users of the FSA will be able to view these changes in the updated FSA benchmarking protocol, which you can download from our resource center. So with that all said and done, I'd now like to hand over to Matt and Carla with the exciting news on the Regenerated Together module.
Great, thank you very much, Joe, and hi everyone. As Joe says, today we're delighted to introduce the FSA Regenerating Together module, which is now available for piloting throughout 2025. And so we're going to talk you through the purpose of the module and also highlight some of the key module materials that we're releasing to SciPlatform members today. So next slide, please, Carla. So what is the module and why have we developed it? Well, recognizing the significant interest in regenerative agriculture among FSA users, we set out to develop a solution that would allow users to seamlessly implement SciPlatform's Regenerating Together framework alongside the FSA. So we've built this as an optional module for FSA users, and farms and farm management groups will be able to select whether they would like to add Regenerating Together into their assessment. And if they choose to use the module, we have developed resources to guide them through the implementation process and have defined a pathway that integrates the FSA implementation cycle and the RTF implementation steps. So the intention here is really to provide users with a single solution that they can adopt to implement both the FSA and the RTF together, as opposed to using each as standalone frameworks. So today we're releasing new module resources that will be available for piloting by SciPlatform members between now and September. And feedback really is so important to ensure that this is a solution that works practically on farm and that can support the scaling of regenerative agriculture. So we'd really appreciate your involvement in pilots. And then while the resources are available only to SciPlatform members just now, after piloting and collecting feedback to further refine the module, we're ultimately aiming to make this a public solution that can support FSA and RTF claims simultaneously in 2026. And we'll share more information on pilots towards the end of this presentation. Next slide, please, Carla. Today, we would like to talk you through three new resources that underpin the Regenerating Together module. So firstly, and available today to members, is the Regenerating Together module handbook. And this is the key resource that walks FSA users through the additional requirements for implementing the module. And it can be downloaded from my SciPlatform following this webinar. And likewise, we're releasing the integrated self-assessment questionnaire, which builds the RTF into the existing FSA 3.0 questionnaire. And this is an Excel-based assessment that asks farm-level questions to determine an FSA and an RTF performance level. And then finally, we have also developed an integrated priority screening tool that aligns with the RTF. So the integrated tool is available via our web app rather than being a downloadable resource, and a link to the tool will be shared with users piloting the module when they get started. So these are the key resources that can be used to pilot the module, and we're going to provide a bit more detail on each in turn just to highlight some of their key features. Next slide, please, Carla. Now, the key resource for understanding how to implement the module is the Regenerating Together module handbook. For those of you that are familiar with the FSA and its resources already, this document really is in keeping with the FSA's existing normative documents in that it walks users through the key steps and minimum requirements for implementing the module. It doesn't replace any of the existing normative documents for FSA users. Rather, it's intended to be a supplementary and direct users to relevant resources in relevant sections. In terms of the target audience, the handbook is aimed at both current and prospective FSA users that are also interested in implementing and demonstrating regenerative agriculture adoption. And then in terms of the purpose, this resource is really to guide users through the process of implementing the FSA and the RTF together. And the module does this by integrating the key elements of the RTF into the FSA assessment. And then, as mentioned, the handbook really is signposting as well towards other key guidance documents in relevant sections, which includes the FSA implementation framework and the new Regenerating Together framework implementation guide, and also the outcome quantification guide. Next slide, please, Carla. The handbook outlines the module implementation cycle, which you can see on this slide, and the cycle might look familiar to current FSA users, but there are some changes as it integrates the RTF implementation steps into the FSA 3.0 cycle. So you can see in blue the additions that come with using the module, and these are the key areas that the handbook addresses and provides guidance on. So a key point I'd like to make is that there are differences in the implementation steps depending on whether you are using FSA 3.0 only or whether you're using the module. One key difference being, for example, in the module, there's a mandatory outcome quantification component, which you can see in this cycle from step 4 and read about in more detail in the handbook. And then also the cycle shows where third-party verification will ultimately sit in the implementation process when this becomes an option for users in 2026 after the piloting phase. So please do have a look through the handbook to understand the modified implementation cycle in more detail. And then next slide, please, Carla. And so the second key module resource that we're releasing today is the integrated self-assessment questionnaire. Now, the self-assessment questionnaire is really at the heart of the FSA, and we've developed a version of this that integrates key elements of the RTF. So this is an Excel-based questionnaire, and the image at the top of the slide that you can see shows what you'll see when you open the file. So the questionnaire is initially set up for a standard FSA 3.0 implementation, but users will have the option to click a button and add in the Regenerating Together module. And you'll also see, and as mentioned by Joe earlier, the file contains an optional set of due diligence questions that can be added into the assessment. So these are based on our ongoing work on due diligence and cover human rights and environmental impact. They're not tied to the Regenerating Together module, but are available for users to explore in the file for further insight into our work on due diligence. And if users select that they'd like to add the Regenerating Together module into their assessment, additional features will display in the questionnaire that allow them to demonstrate regenerative agriculture adoption alongside their FSA assessment. So what does that look like? Next slide, please, Carla. So there are a few key elements I'd just like to highlight in the questionnaire. Firstly, when using the module, users will see separate FSA and RTF performance levels in their assessments. So the FSA performance level is the same as in FSA 3.0. Farms can achieve bronze, silver, or gold performance level based on their questionnaire responses. And then alongside this, they'll see whether they've also achieved a regenerating together performance level, which follows the same rules as the standalone RTF. So farms need to be implementing at least 2 relevant regenerative agriculture practices and monitoring at least 2 regenerative agriculture outcomes in their farm management groups. And then secondly, the module adds in some new regenerative agriculture practice questions. So the questionnaire covers 14 regenerative agriculture practices defined in the RTF. And in keeping with the FSA, all of these are yes/no questions. So there are 9 regenerative agriculture practices that have been benchmarked to existing FSA questions. So they're existing questions that now contribute to both an FSA performance level and an RTF performance level. And then there are 5 new questions that cover regenerative agriculture practices that have been added into the questionnaire and contribute only to the regenerating together performance level. And then also on practices, each of the regenerative agriculture practice questions have an additional part that asks for the extent of practice adoption as a percentage area. This part is optional and it's not tied to the performance levels, but it could be used as a means of collecting more practice-based information via the self-assessment questionnaire. And then finally, the module questionnaire also provides the functionality for farm management groups to select which outcomes and indicators they're quantifying as part of their module implementation. And this determines which regenerative agriculture practices are relevant for them in the farm management group, as well as the regenerating together performance level itself, which depends on how many outcomes are being monitored, whether the outcomes have been baselined, and whether progress has yet been quantified over time. So yeah, as mentioned, the questionnaire will be available following this webinar on my side platform for members. So please do have a look. And I'll now pass over to Carla.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So as part of the module's development, we've made significant updates to the priority screening tool to better support farm management groups in both identifying farm sustainability priorities and regenerative agriculture outcomes. The updated priority screening tool is now an integrated tool that will generate 2 key reports. The first one being a FSA priority topic scoring report, which helps farm management groups identify priority sustainability topics. The second is a regenerative agriculture priority outcomes report. So this report helps identify which relevant regenerative outcomes based on context analysis. So this should give farm management groups a clearer understanding of the most impactful areas to address. A major enhancement of the PST is the integration of the Regenerating Together framework. So this brings its material criteria and the context analysis directly into the priority screening tool. So you can see this in the graph on the slide, which enables a comprehensive assessment of factors that influence on-farm performance. So these insights can help farm management groups select appropriate indicators, prioritize regenerative practices, and help align their continuous improvement plans. It is also important to highlight that the context methodology that we've embedded into the priority screening tool mirrors that of the standalone Regenerating Together framework. In doing so, this ensures that users receive consistent and reliable results, regardless if they are using the integrated module or the standalone version itself. As Matt and Joe have already mentioned, the updated PST will be exclusively available to side platform members only. So this will be made available through the FSA web tool, and we will provide a link to the staging environment, which we'll provide upon request. So again, as Matt's already mentioned, these resources are available for piloting from today. So to ensure the successful implementation of the module, you should use these resources alongside the key normative documents, including the FSA implementation framework, the Regenerating Together framework implementation guide, and the outcome quantification guide. The module handbook will clearly indicate where each of these documents should be used in conjunction with the handbook module to provide a seamless user experience. By integrating these resources, we have hoped to make the module more practical, actionable, and aligned within the existing FSA framework. We're really looking forward to seeing how these resources work in practice and welcome your feedback to help refine and improve them further. To ensure that the new module is both practical and effective at the farm level, we will be conducting a pilot phase, as already mentioned, which is designed to refine and improve the module's resources and its integration within the existing FSA system. This process, we're hoping, will allow us to gather valuable feedback and make any necessary adjustments before the full rollout of the module. As previously touched on as well, the pilot phase will run from March to September and will be open exclusively to site platform members. In doing so, we're hoping to engage a diverse range of members across different regions and farming contexts. We're really hoping to work with you to test the module and collect insights, also to make sure that all of these improvements can be added to the resources based on the feedback provided. It is our full intention to ultimately make the system publicly available to all users following the successful completion of the pilot. We do encourage all interested site platform members to participate in the pilot and contribute your feedback. For those who have already completed the survey and have registered their interest through previous Regenerating Together frame webinars, that's really fantastic. And we've got your details on file and we'll be in touch with the next steps shortly. If you haven't yet signed up, but you're interested in participating in the pilot, you can do so by scanning this QR code. We really thank you again for your continued support and interest in advancing the module further. I'll now hand over back to Matt and Joe for Q&A.
Hi, thanks, Carla. So yes, we can. Please do, if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or just ask directly. But I can see we've got a few already. So yes, I can see Joe's already put in the chat, but just to highlight to everybody, if you are looking to see existing FSA verifications, since we have set up our new internal database and connected this with ITC's Certified Business Registry, you can view all valid verifications in ITC's registry, and Joe's put the link in the chat. And there are filters there, so you can search for different crops in different regions. If you're looking for specific letters of attestation and you know the site platform number, the unique identifier, you can search by that as well. So hopefully that will be useful. And then another question. So Melinda, is the web app generally updated to have Excel outcome and point numbers? Previous setting made it difficult to use. So the web app isn't currently being updated in this phase of work alongside the pilots, but that will ultimately happen so that users can, if they're looking to use the module as well as doing it through the Excel version, they can also use the web app. The only addition to the web app, or the only change there, is the priority screening tool, which feeds into the next question. So why is that only available to companies piloting? Tamas, and that's because the priority screening tool is available in the staging environment of the web app. And while it's being piloted, we are not updating the current version of the PST for all FSA users. So users looking to currently use just the FSA 3.0 and get verified will still have access to that through the web app. In terms of learning more about that integrated PST, so in the handbook, that does go through the steps for using the PST, but actually you'll find in the Regenerating Together framework implementation guide, in one of the appendices, you'll see the material criteria and the context analysis questions within the RTF that have been integrated into the PST. So we've taken these same risk questions and integrated them into the FSA priority screening tool so we can have the same scoring approach for users to identify prioritized regenerative agriculture outcomes. And then Simon, the slide on the integrated self-assessment questionnaire suggested this is primarily intended for farm management groups. Would it be appropriate for benchmark schemes to use this also, or do you plan an alternative approach? Yeah, so the self-assessment questionnaire would just be used for those users, either farm management groups or farms directly implementing the module. But I'd maybe pass over to Joe for a bit more information on the plans for benchmarking going forward.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks for your question, Simon. Indeed, the questionnaire as it currently stands is primarily aimed at farm management groups, just as you said, but we are working closely with the regenerative agriculture team at SciPlatform to develop an approach for regen ag benchmarking. We have made some steady progress with that, and by the end of this year, we want to offer users the opportunity to be able to benchmark their own regenerative agriculture schemes against SciPlatform's Regenerating Together on a content basis. So you're of course, Simon, familiar with the FSA's benchmarking system being part of our benchmarking work stream. But for those that maybe are not as familiar with in terms of the FSA, we benchmark schemes based on their content, the governance and assurance relative to the schemes. And there are different rules around each. And so what we are developing this year for the Regenerated Together framework is the content aspect of the benchmarking. And then next year, the second phase of that work will be developing an approach to being able to benchmark a regen ag scheme's third-party assurance against that of Regenerated Together. I hope that answers your question sufficiently, Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. That's really helpful. Appreciate the clarification, and yeah, we look forward to working together with you on it.
Brilliant.
Great. I don't see any further questions in the chat, but if you do have any, please put them in there or do just ask. Well, if there's nothing, no further questions from anyone, then I would say thank you very much for joining for the webinar today.
Matt, sorry, I have one earlier about the VBs and the trainings. It's just above Simon's. Do you have any estimation on the trainings? Because we can apply for pilot, or clients can apply for pilot, but if we don't get any training from the VB's part, it's going to be difficult.
Yes, no, thank you, Melinda. So there will definitely be training organized for VBs so that they can audit the module alongside the FSA. In the initial phase of piloting, there won't be verifications, but we will later on in the year be communicating about training for VBs so we can set up to to also test the verification. But we'll be in touch with the verification body community of practice about this.
Thank you. We're waiting for that.
And then I see, is there a SI who's on the site and who to contact about what or our SPOC for member further questions? If that is generally about further questions and supports with using the module, then you can get in touch with any of us. And please do, you can get in touch with, you'll see either our email addresses directly on the SCI Platform website, or you can contact FSA@sciplatform.org. And if there's anything further, we'd be really happy to help, and especially with anybody piloting. Piloting the module, will be supporting you throughout that process. And we'll be in touch in the coming days with more information for those of you who have either previously or today registered interest in piloting, with some information on the sort of feedback that we're aiming to collect over the next few months during this process. No problem. Great. Well, if there are no further questions just now, then thanks again for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to being in touch with you about pilots in the coming days. But yeah, I hope everybody has a good rest of your day.
I still have a small question, Matt, but
no problem.
I will give you a call separately.
No worries. If you'd like to ask now, please do go ahead.
Well, I just joined now, and I wanted, because I was going to join from the beginning, but I will contact. It was more to do on the optionality. So maybe this is a topic that has been discussed. Is this so these additional questions of the CS-DDD? So this add-on, is that an optional add-on, or is it a must-have for the FSA 3.1?
Yes. So thanks, Geert, for the question. So we're currently we're not going ahead just now with a next version of the FSA in 3.1. And this is because we've broadened the approach to due diligence to focus on due diligence more broadly than just CS-DDD.
Okay.
And also because currently with the Regenerating Together module, it's available only to SCI Platform members, and we're holding off releasing a new version of the FSA until the resources are in a place to be publicly usable for everyone. What you can see though in the self-assessment questionnaire, so the integrated self-assessment questionnaire is going to be shared through my SCI Platform for members, is you can see some of the work we've done on due diligence through an additional optional set of questions that you can add into the assessment. So there are 17 new questions that you can optionally add in and look at the sort of coverage of those. But they're not attached to the Regen Ag module. They're just there for information to give a bit more insight into that work we've been doing recently. Yes.
Maybe one build there, Matt, if you're done.
Yeah, of course.
So, and thank you for that, Matt, for your question, Geert. I think one maybe addition there is that the add-on approach will be optional, but one of the things that we are doing now to complement the extra 17 extra farm level questions that we've created is we are developing kind of a purpose-built human rights and environmental impact assessment tool, and this will comprise kind of a significant part of the due diligence approach. So basically, what we hope that this or intend for this tool to do is that at FMG level, it will allow farm management group coordinators to assess whether particular human rights or environmental impacts are salient within their FMGs based on the particular commodity, the particular geography in which they are situated, or also in terms of the farm profiles. And this kind of risk-based approach will then complement the FSA, the self-assessment questionnaire and the extra questions that we've developed, which will act more as a means of checking whether the risks identified by the human rights and environmental risk assessment tool are pertinent on the farms that they are working with or not. So it's kind of a two-step approach.
Okay. And then if I may, I'm sorry, I just jumped in. I was going to follow from the beginning. I have a second question. So on the Regenerating Together platform, you don't have any social questions, or the social aspects are basically more or less ignored. To what extent can we use parts of the FSA to check basically social aspects and combine that with the Regenerating Together platform? So I had the question from one of my countries where they say, okay, we want to step immediately into the Regenerative Together platform. So they did not have any FSA in the past, had a benchmark system. They want to, but they don't want to go, and in the benchmark system, of course, the social aspects, social criteria are also being covered. They want now to go to the Regenerating Together immediately because there is more value, but that does not have any social aspects. So
yes, thanks, Geert. It's a good question, and I suppose comes down to different use cases for why users would want to use either the FSA or the Regenerating Together framework as standalones, or potentially both together. And I suppose that would hopefully be a nice case where the module is helpful, because as you know, the Regenerating Together framework currently focuses on 4 impact areas that doesn't cover a social dimension, so it's soil, water, biodiversity, and climate. Whereas the FSA is more holistic in covering a lot of social questions. So the idea is that by using the module, you could take this single approach to assessment and cover all of those FSA topics, but also cover Regen Ag, and go through a single verification so that you can collect and verify information across both systems and therefore get insight into the social dimensions through the FSA, but also some of the more specific RTF components, such as the outcome quantification piece. So that's really, I suppose, one of the hopefully the benefits of using the module is that you can get insight into across both systems.
And that's the module that you talked about today, then.
Yeah, so that's today, and you can access, if you missed the presentation, you can access a recording, but please, just let us know and we can follow up and have a separate conversation as well.
These were 2 questions because it's that was from one of the markets asking the question. Okay, all fine. Sorry for jumping in so late.
No problem at all. Thanks for joining.
I had just an extra thought, Geert. I mean, I could in theory, imagine a situation where one of your suppliers is using a scheme that's benchmarked against the FSA, maybe at FSA silver level equivalent, and they and you are kind of fairly confident that covers the necessary social dimensions, the labor topics, etc. So in theory, they could use the regenerative agriculture standalone tool from Side Platform on top of that. But then, as Matt just alluded to, then it's not very efficient because you have two separate tools, 2 separate audit processes. So that adds time and cost. So So it's possible, but maybe not the most economic thing to do.
Yeah, but if I understand correctly, we talk about Chile. There we don't have anything. So we don't have FSA. We don't have a benchmark. They want to scale up. We talk about specific crops, about chicory mainly. So they want to scale up and they want to start applying the regenerating together platform immediately because there are also customer demands. But of course, the social aspects are not covered. And there I say, okay, this is then, should I do then first the FSA, which is very, very, let's say, demanding. And on top of that, the RTP. And that's where I'm hinting to, but I understood that you can start with the RTP and that you can add the social dimension to it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think in that situation, I mean, I suppose it's down to individual supply chains and different companies' risk appetites. But I think we would also always recommend using something like the FSA with that social part of the assessment as a basis before focusing on the other things.
But then you have to, yeah, okay. But then you have the two platforms. You have the two solutions you have to implement. Okay, well, we'll see. We're not yet there. But it was more like to see what are the options.
Great.
You know where we are. We're happy to brainstorm on another call.
I know where you are, for sure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Geert. Are there any, has this discussion prompted any further questions from anyone? Because we still have a few minutes left if you would like to ask or clarify anything else. In that case, then, I really do wish you, a good rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining. And yes, please do get in touch if you've got any further questions on any of the content that was covered during today's webinar. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.